When it comes to barbecue, like so many of this country's other treasures, the contribution of black people have been overlooked. For over 33 years, I have committed myself to this craft of making barbecue, meaning the whole hog. Particularly over the past 6 years, I have been on this journey to understand barbecue in America as a researcher after seeing receipts from the past that made barbecue more interesting beyond simply a recipe. I'm Dr. Howard Conyers, and I'm from Paxville, South Carolina, even though today I live in New Orleans. I come from a farming family that has been in this community since enslavement. In my community, black farmers like my father have been cooking barbecue per tradition, unaware that they were continuing a rich heritage that dates back hundreds of years. These cooks use the same basic process to cook barbecue. They butterfly the hog open, burn oak or hickory wood down to form a bed of coals, and then use the coals to provide heat underneath the carcass while mopping the meat with a vinegar pepper-based barbecue sauce. When one moves to a new place, the quickest way to return home is through food. This is true of any culture. While homesick in New Orleans, barbecue was my way home. I saw how many white people were being celebrated in mainstream media as if they originated and shaped barbecue when growing up. Most of the people I saw doing barbecue were black, and although very few of them as a main job, I started to ask a few questions while thinking about the countless oral histories shared with me as I connected the dots between the scarce documentation that exists. Growing up, we did not take photographs, so I asked my father to draw a picture of the pit he used for cooking in the ground. Yes, cooking in the ground, but not what you're thinking. Nothing like the Hawaiian luau approach. Immediately upon seeing that sketch and reflecting on the archival pictures, I realized my connection to barbecue and other black people connections to barbecue in the American South were more closely related than I imagined by looking at how the hog was displayed on the pit and the mopping the image, along with the people actually doing the work. As I looked across various states, I saw similar earth-dug pits that look identical except for locations. I asked myself, how is it that cooking barbecue in the ground like my father did can be found in Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, North Carolina, Tennessee, that you see images that look nearly identical to what my father drew in South Carolina? This was long before Google, YouTube, and barbecue books to share the information. Barbecue spread across the South at a time when blacks were forgetting to read and write. The only conclusion I could make for the linkage and travel of American barbecue was that the recipe migrated from place to another, entrenched in the heads and hands of the enslaved and their descendants. The process of cooking barbecue, the pits, and even things as minute as vinegar pepper-based barbecue sauce traveled in their heads. While my family barbecue sauce has a vinegar base, it evolved to include new ingredients that came on the commercial market a very long time ago in the early 1900s. Let me take you there. Please join me as I travel to a juke joint called the Hilltop in Lakeview, South Carolina, where my family would go eat pork skins and sauce, a childhood favorite. When you entered the theater tonight, you were handed a package. Open it now, and inside you will find pork rinds and my family's very own barbecue sauce, which I made and transported here just for you. Have a taste. Enjoy. To confirm my beliefs that barbecue traveled in the heads of the descendants of enslaved people, I went to visit and eat barbecue from the 8 remaining black old-school whole hog pitmasters aged 60 and above in restaurants in the country, and a few I will share this evening. In talking to each of these pitmasters, I learned they all still serve a straight vinegar pepper-based barbecue sauce, and they cook pork in above-ground pits with roots in earth-dug pits. To not be biased to South Carolina, I went to Eastern North Carolina to eat at Grady's Barbecue in Dudley. While his barbecue pits were made from nice brick, he too learned to cook in the ground. A story that demonstrates resourcefulness, Mr. Stephen Grady shared how his grandfather would travel around the county with a metal grate and some tobacco sticks. So all he had to do was dig a hole and start cooking. Mr. Grady is still in business, but he may retire at any time as he is in his 80s. Now I return to the PD region of South Carolina to visit with Ricky Scott, no relation to the famous pit master Rodney Scott. Ricky Scott operates a barbecue joint at Hell's Half Acre, located one county over from my home county. Ricky Scott barbecue joint only cooks 1 day a week in cinder block pits that are not even mortared together. He too started cooking barbecue in the ground down on the tobacco farm. One of my favorite barbecue visits was with Mr. James Jones of Jones Barbecue Diner in Marianna, Arkansas, about 1.5 hours outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in the Arkansas Delta. Immediately upon driving up, I thought I was in South Carolina because how the air smelled surrounding the barbecue restaurant. When I entered the restaurant and walked in the pit room, I knew for sure that Southern barbecue was here, long before the divisions we see today in Eastern Texas, Kansas City, Memphis, North and South Carolina. The final evidence here is the vinegar pepper-based sauce and the conversation we had about the hole in the ground. He noted that during some holidays like the 4th of July, his grandfather would dig pits in the ground to give extra cooking capacity to supplement the cinder block pits that he still uses today. This is my final tidbit about this place. I believe Jones Barbecue Diner is the oldest continuously run black restaurant in the country, and I believe he is the only pit master that I have met that have cooked barbecue in a traditional manner since slavery that could be documented in one family. The similarities in Mr. Grady, Mr. Scott, and Mr. Jones are not a coincidence, as they are rooted in the agricultural communities in the South. Researching the earth dug pit was not enough. The engineer in me wanted to validate the process in the ground for myself, like my father last did over 40 years ago. The earth dug pit worked as the above ground pits I learned as a kid when I used in 2017. To validate the literature further, the only animal missing in my cooking from the past was the whole cow. So I barbecued a whole cow in 2018 at Gumbo Jubilee. Having access to better equipment and manufacturing processes made a difficult task easier, but it was still very hard, trust me. The ability to make much better equipment and the moving of people was ultimately what led to the regionalizations of barbecue that you see today. If you look at the aquarium pits in Chicago or the indirect barbecue smokers in Texas, you will see this clearly. You don't see these types of pits in images from the early 1900s or before. As I close, I hope you gain a deeper respect of Southern barbecue traditions, which is the foundation of American barbecue in its regions. I stick by the traditions when I make barbecue so people will have an understanding of the past and the present. Traditions like Southern barbecue have to be preserved and documented by the people who descended from those who created this work and lived this subject. Therefore, why I believe it is important for me to tell and share this story tonight with you. Thank you.